Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Never Thirst Again. I'm your podcast host, Chrissy Smith. Before we begin, let me just tell you guys, it has absolutely been quite a few busy days here, to say the least. I will say this though, over the weekend, I actually did get to have some real quality family time with my husband and the kids. My son, Kingston, who played for one of the local Little League teams, was actually gifted some complimentary tickets to see the local semi-pro team right here in Columbia. If you know anything about the Columbia Fireflies, they're amazing. So we had the absolute best time when we went to see them. Now, while we were there, we did take part in all the fun stuff that you normally see at a baseball game. The stuff that really gets the crowd participation going. All the singing, the dancing to the catchy music in the stadium, and of course, eating some yummy ballpark dogs too, right? Well, I think to add to that, I almost started to leave this part out, but let me just say we did have on all of our matching Fireflies hats. So it was absolutely a family event. We really did have so much fun out there, just being able to watch the players and enjoy the reactions from the crowd. The fact that it was Paw Patrol night along with fireworks as a show was just simply icing on the cake for every child and parent out there. But I will say this, even with all the excitement that was going on out there were two moments that really stood out from the rest. Now, I'm a mom, so forgive me if I tend to get a little warm and fuzzy inside, but throughout this podcast, you'll see that's just bound to happen, all right? So, back to my story. So, we were having the absolute best time watching everything that was taking place out there. However, by the time we got to about maybe the sixth inning, the kids were starting to get a little bit antsy. It happened to be right around the time when the announcer came on the speakers and said, "All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get on up out of your seats and dance to the music." Before we knew it, my son Kingston and my oldest daughter Chloe, we were standing all around jamming to YMCA. Of course, if you know me, you know that I was absolutely going all in with the hand movements and belting out the lyrics at the top of my lungs. They joined in too, of course, but you'll learn real soon that at the very core, I am absolutely an entertainer. Anyway, our littlest, Winter Rose. She's often a little shy and a little reserved, and absolutely she's that way when she's in a crowd full of people, but she had also been bitten by the bug. Because when I looked to my right, my husband had already hoisted her up above his head with his hands, and she was waving her hands in the air like she just didn't care. She had the biggest smile on her face, and in that moment, she had gotten the attention of everyone around us. When the cameras came rolling around to our side in the stadium, it was all the more sweet when we saw her on the Jumbotron. Yes, they were playing her little video all through the ballpark, so it was super, super awesome. Nothing but cheers and joy illuminated from the crowd for the shy little girl who hung in the air, waving her arms for the whole stadium to watch. And it absolutely warmed my heart just to see her have that little moment of, hey, I'm coming out of my shell here. Not to mention my husband, who was watching the other two kids who clearly didn't need any type of coaxing to join in with the crowd participation. He knew exactly what Winter needed in that moment, so it was kind of a super dad moment for him too. It was absolutely a good day. Now, that moment was a special one that she'll remember for a long time to come. But that wasn't the only thing that stood out about that day. You see, after all the fun interactions, winter spotlight on the Jumbotron, and yeah, even the fireworks. It was time to go. When we got up from our seats, my husband wanted to make a quick stop at the restroom on the way out, something he usually does whenever we go to the ballpark. So we stood there waiting by the popcorn stands until he came out. We must have seen about maybe 4 or 5 other gentlemen come out before he did. And honestly, I wondered what in the world was taking so long, right? But when he finally did come back out, we didn't waste our time just standing around. We made our way through the crowds until we got outside and finally reached the parking lot where we were parked. Now, as we were driving down the highway, I made a point of asking everyone in the car what their favorite part of the evening was. And of course, the kids gave various answers, but I asked my husband too, just so he didn't think that he was exempt from sharing, because sometimes he counts himself out of those moments. But I made sure that he was absolutely ready to give an answer. So I asked him, "Babe, what was your favorite part of the evening?" His responses are usually straight and to the point, but it wasn't this time. He responded by saying, "Wait, before I answer that question, can I tell you what happened to me while I was in the bathroom?" "Sure," I responded. He said, "Well, did you see the older gentleman and his son who were sitting behind us at the game? They came out of the bathroom right before I did." "Yep," I said. "I saw them come out before you." Well, while I was washing my hands, the older gentleman came up to me and said, "Hey there, how you doing? You know what? I was watching you with your family today because my family and I were sitting right behind you. And you know what? I can tell good parents when I see them. I can tell a good dad when I see one too. You keep on doing what you're doing, okay, brother?" He told me how in that short amount of time, a wonderful God moment between 2 strangers had occurred. Not only was it a time where 2 men got to create a small sense of brotherhood, but if I'm being quite honest, this was a time where the actions of 2 men made an impact on how even they see the world around them. This was a clear moment of intent. I know this to be true because what I didn't mention earlier was that the weather did not look promising for us earlier that day. The storm clouds were rolling in, and those tickets were close to becoming a waste, an absolute waste, because it did start raining, thundering, and lightning on our side of town. But we did press our way to the game anyway, in hopes that we would still have a wonderful time and that we would all be able to stay dry. Also, because the time for this podcast is just a little bit limited, I didn't even get to mention that the man who felt it necessary to remind my husband that he was doing a wonderful job as a father was indeed the same man who caught the foul ball in the 4th inning. He was the same man who tapped our son on the shoulder and said, "Hey, little guy, I saw you going in for the catch too. Why don't you keep it and add it to your collection, huh?" This stranger was the same stranger who put a smile on my son's face that could have lit the world. Then he turned around and did the same thing for my husband. You see, I recognize that God is everywhere, even at the baseball game. The same way that he can use a stranger to brighten your day when it's just a little overcast is the same way that he wants to seize every single moment with us. Now, I don't know the name of this man who made such an impact on my family, but I do thank God that he was obedient in allowing God to use him to be a blessing to us on that day. This is just another benefit of God allowing us to drink from the well of living water freely so that we'll never thirst again. Well, I hope this story did something for you today. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Don't forget to subscribe for more content to come. Take care, God bless, and thanks for tuning in. Bye.